Good afternoon, everyone. As a part of the annual business summit of IIFT Kolkata, Vivaan, we are thrilled to welcome you all to the annual Trade and Ops Summit conducted by Blash, the International Trade Club of IIFT, in association with Scope, the Supply Chain Operations and Energy Club. We are conducting a panel discussion under the name Opera Trade on the topic Supply Chain Visibility, the Road Ahead. Our theme revolves around supply chain transparency and visibility and how it can be improved to suit the needs of the future. Our first panelist for the day is Ms. Kokila Roy, Global Digital Transformation Head and Director at GEP Worldwide. Ma'am has over 17 years of experience with her key skills varying across Industry 4.0 transformation, technical solution design, program governance, risk management, and change management. Ma'am is currently working in GEP Worldwide for its global digital transformation and implementation. Before joining GEP Worldwide, Ma'am was working with Tata Consultancy Services in the capacity of a project lead. Ma'am is a BS graduate from Miranda House, Delhi University, and is also an alum of MIT Sloan. We welcome you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Mr. Vibhor Laddha, Director, Asia Pacific and India, CAPEX at Archer Daniels Midland Company. Sir has over 12 years of experience working with ADM. Prior to this, Sir was working at Unilever in engineering and supply chain function. A chemical engineering graduate from IIT BHU, he pursued his Executive General Management program from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. Our third panelist is Mr. Atanu Basu, Chief of Inland Waterways and Multimodal Logistics at TM International Logistics Limited. Sir has over 17 years of experience with his key skills varying across in shipping and logistics domain in areas such as railway logistics, commercial shipping, freight consolidation, etc. Sir has also pursued his MBA in logistics and is also a member of the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers.
Our next panelist is Shailesh Mishra, sir, Product Director, Blue Yonder. Sir has over 18 years of experience in building and leading teams of 4 professional services, support, customer success with a SaaS first, cloud-based ML AI product company, including pre-sales solution strategy, sales support, project delivery, consultation, implementation, and support. He is currently working with Blue Yonder, hands-on field experience in digital transformation engagements for customers located in North America, Europe, and India. Before joining Blue Yonder, he has worked with Tata Consultancy Group. For Shailesh is a computer science engineer from RB College, Bangalore, and also a PG from UCLA Anderson School of Management. We welcome you, sir. Our next panelist is Sampath Raghavan, sir, head Exim and Logistics at Raymond Limited. Sir has over 32 years of professional experience in the field of international trade, customs, central excise, banking, marine insurance, and logistics. Sir has successfully set up and monitored the logistic functions having complex cross-country supply chains in Ethiopia from inception stage, having knowledge of multilateral agreements between sub-Saharan African countries and USA. Before joining Raymond, Sir was working with Titan Industries as a senior purchase officer. Sir is an alumni of Indian Institute of Material Management. We welcome you, sir. This panel discussion will be moderated by Dr. Dipankar Sinha, Professor and Head of Research at Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, Kolkata. He is also part of IIFT, Center for Trade Facilitation and Logistics, cited by Logistic Division, BPIIT, and Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Sir has over 33 years of experience in teaching, MDP, research projects, consultancy, planning, and information technology. He has provided inputs to the national logistics policy also, carried out sector-specific logistics studies, and also developed an index LPIS for each sector. He was also part of warehouse standardized exercise by Bureau of Indian Standards. Prior joining to IIFT, he was working as a deputy director at Kolkata Port Trust. Sir is a PhD from IIT Kharagpur, Department of Industrial and System Engineering. Sir is also produces MBA in Finance. We welcome you, sir. Again, on behalf of entire IIFT student fraternity, we welcome all our guests and the stage is open. Dipankar sir, you can take forward.
So, a very good afternoon to all the panelists here and dear students, faculty members, and esteemed guests. Today we are all here to discuss about a very relevant and crucial topic, bringing in transparency and visibility in the supply chain. Because recent events have led us to rethink the way we were doing business earlier, and has become an important discussion that whether we should make our supply chain, how to make our supply chain resilient. And in doing so, the past objectives of making supply chain lean, agile, flexible, and also resilient sometimes is contradicting. And one important thing that came out of this, all these events is that transparency has become now the buzzword. When we talk about supply chain visibility, it is not only about to understand where the product is, how much the sales are going to happen. In today's world of sustainability and circularity, it is also important to know we should also have the visibility of the different sustainable elements like emissions, energy use, circularity, like in case of managing the waste, and all together we now take a decision. So in this panel discussion, we'll have we follow a structure that is what we would ask each of the experts here give their first round of views, and followed by that we would leave the floor open for discussion on the crucial elements that come out of the initial action. So to begin with, I will request Sam to give your views.
Sure, thank you. So a lot has been said in my introduction. So as you all heard, I have primary experience in the technology transformations. During the COVID, I believe the digital transformation has become a buzzword, right? They have realized and heard about it quite a lot than before that. To be honest, all the companies, especially B2B companies, have always tried and thought about doing those digital transformations, but somehow it always takes a backseat. Now, during the COVID, we were discussing in separately during our discussion as well amongst the panel that in the Suez Canal, this particular ever given ship was stuck for long, right? So the time taken to react to such situation could have been reduced in case there would have been more technology involved, there had been more automated processes involved. There's a long story behind that, but in the end, everybody realized during the COVID that how the digital transformation is important in the supply chain. So since then, there has been a lot of focus around this, and I believe going forward, it is only going to increase. We have seen a very rise in the digital transformations, considering the way the supply chain has been operating has also changed quite a lot, right? There has been a lot of door-to-door pickups, deliveries that has increased. And now many of the organizations are looking at how we can reduce the cost of maintaining multiple systems, because the traditional ERP systems that we all have seen, all the companies are generally using, those ERPs, what we have seen is that has been deployed almost 2 decades back, and it's very difficult to change once it has been deployed. So what happens is that now the world has moving so much and has moved so much that to look at changing anything, the entire company digital transformation needs to be done, and that becomes costly because the entire budget had to be kept in mind, and it becomes an overhead. So the easy plug and play situations are kind of getting the opportunities around this is getting very reduced. So from that perspective, what we have seen is that the data, people, and the process, these three are majorly define how a particular company operates. So one is to do the process transformation of that particular supply chain, how that particular company is taking care of the processes. One is the data, and we have seen that the data is quite fragmented. So the technology where it is headed now away from ERP is basically form the base of the data, keep the data very steady. Let's not change that data quite a lot. Let's absorb everything from different applications. We utilize the data from that same data lake, let's say. And then all the applications are kind of utilizing the same data. So you do not have to have fragmented systems. Everybody is kind of related to that same data. If that is the future concept which is coming into, the more we talk about it, the companies are realizing that maintaining multiple systems with their individual data, for example, suppliers, right? If the suppliers data is kind of separate, then it becomes very difficult to maintain those suppliers. So there are a lot of nitty-gritties. I know this particular audience is probably getting still acquainted about what are the challenges on the ground. But basically, from technology transformation perspective, the companies are basically looking at how we can reduce the maintenance of multiple systems across the technologies. That is where the world will be headed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor, and thank you, ma'am. I would also, first of all, like to thank the entire IIFT team, giving this opportunity to interact with you all, to be a part of this discussion at this institute, which is one of the premier institutions in the country, and to interact with some of the brightest minds in India. Thanks so much. So coming to the topic today, supply chain, the issues in supply chain and the road ahead. Most of us would know supply chain has 4 goals: plan, source, make, deliver. I come from a manufacturing background, being a chemical engineer, and then worked into roles such as operations, project management, supply chain. And in my current profile, I am working on capital planning and execution. That involves leading the capital expenditure center of excellence, and also working on all the growth and strategy projects for the organization. This involves brownfield expansions and also putting up greenfield sites, wherever the company thinks to venture into a new geography. So within manufacturing, there are 2 domains if I have to categorize. One of them is running the existing show. Yeah, we have a lot of factories, that are operating across continents. So what do we do to, make sure that these continue operating? The second domain is towards the expansion, as I said. How do we build the organization for the future? Today, I would like to keep the focus on the supply chain disruptions that are happening today and that how it is impacting the manufacturing, both in the existing scenario and the growth and expansion scenario. And to be honest, I've come here as a solution seeker. I don't have the solutions for all the problems and the changes and the disruptions that we are seeing today. And I'm happy, more than delighted to share this platform with some esteemed panelists because they come from a supply chain domain, and I'm here to actually seek solutions as you all are. Okay. Let me talk about a few challenges that we faced in the recent times. When we do an expansion, when we put up a greenfield manufacturing site, we have to look at a lot of things. The initial thing comes as a capital planning. Are we investing in the right domain? Have we prioritized our initiatives properly? Once that prioritization is done, with a lot of discussions with the business teams, the commercial aspects, you have to figure out how to execute. The ideation has already happened. But post-ideation, I think it's very important. One of the most important things is execution. So pre-COVID times, the execution involved identifying the right, let's say the equipment suppliers, identifying the right contractors, identifying the current exact locations, the locations where we have to put the factory. And I would not say everything was smooth back then. There were challenges, of course, challenges are always there. But what happened post-COVID is there came a lot of deviations, especially in the 4 nodes. Plan, source, make, deliver. Sourcing being the biggest chunk of it. If there's any deviation in any of these nodes, what happens is a ripple effect. And we were talking before this panel discussion, we were talking about the bullwhip effect, the ripple effect that happens in the supply chain. And I'm not going to use a lot of jargons today. I will actually take you to the ground, what we face day in, day out, when we have to plan such capital expenditure and do the growth and expansions for organizations. So first of all, talking about the sourcing. What happened was, pre-COVID times, we had identified suppliers. There's always, large organizations have a database where they know which are the major suppliers that can supply without a disruption. So when the capital planning is done, a capital is allocated to a particular initiative, we keep in mind the turnaround time for execution. What happened amidst COVID and post-COVID is some of these suppliers went bankrupt. Some of these suppliers, had issues in running their fabrication workshops across the globe. Some of these suppliers, were very keen to take the orders. We will be the best one out there to, build this factory or, supply this technology or equipment. But by the time it came for execution, they didn't have the bandwidth. Because of so many issues that were happening due to COVID-19, the health issues, the logistics that got affected, etc. I was in Vietnam about 3 months ago. A certain project where we were putting up some machinery, and it was a brownfield expansion. And the equipment, one of the equipment was supposed to come from China. Another of the equipment, series of equipment, a lot of equipment, were supposed to come from Europe. So, again, the massive disruptions that happened, as I said, people initially committing to what they can do, but backing out, at a later stage. This affects our entire execution piece because then we have to start looking at the alternatives. The other issue that we saw during this COVID-19 and of course even in the environment today is the lead times, the long lead times of some of the skilled equipment, the parts of the equipment that go into those the machines. One of the examples is the chips, the the semiconductor industry and the chip manufacturing. So when we build a factory, we have to have electrical supply, electrical panels, the the logic control panels, etc. And one of the components is these chips, and these come from very specific areas in the world, such as Thailand. With COVID-19 impact, there was a huge disruption because these companies, foresaw that there's going to be a demand, the dip in the demand, and so they didn't have the manufacturing base. They didn't, produce. They didn't have the stocks to supply with the companies. And what we are seeing today is when we have to order something, we are seeing the lead times as high as 12 months, 15 months, which used to be around maybe 4 months or 6 months at maximum. So, the issues that I mentioned, one is lead time, the other one's the disruptions in the fabrication workshops of contractors, suppliers. The third thing that we are seeing right now is inflation, the cost escalations. When we do the capital planning, we allocate a particular budget, and that budget is defined on the basis of the preliminary discussions, the preliminary budgetary quotations that we get from these suppliers. By the time we get into execution, we are seeing that some of these things, that the costs are escalating to a great extent, sometimes to the tune of 30 to 40%. And that disrupts the entire execution piece of expansion within the manufacturing domain. So these are, some of the top issues that we are seeing today. Coming to what we can do, and that's why I said I'm here to seek some solutions. But what we are doing today right now is increasing our visibility within the supply chain. So, for example, if there's an equipment manufacturer and a supplier, so the equipment manufacturing requires procurement of steel and maybe some other materials. So we are going a little ahead, backward in the supply chain and trying to determine all the sourcing companies where this equipment supplier is sourcing the material from. In some of the cases, what we are doing is, for example, I mentioned steel. In some of the cases, what we are doing is, we are not just talking to this equipment manufacturer. We have started talking to the steel supplier who is supplying the steel to this equipment manufacturer. And by doing this, what we are trying to gain is more and more visibility, plus a very close communication to all the stakeholders in the supply chain. So our equipment manufacturer might not know what our needs are, but on an enterprise-wide basis, we know what our portfolio is, and with that portfolio in mind, we know how much material could be procured, let's say from the steel manufacturer. So we are trying to give this visibility back to the original supplier of raw material that we would basically need this material for our equipment supply. Yeah. So that is, in short, we are trying to build the communication. We are trying to go beyond the certain stages that we used to go, and going beyond into the to the point of the origin of that raw material. The second thing about lead times. So what we have started doing as one of the mitigation measures is we have started looking at the long lead items early on. And we have started basically talking to these suppliers through our procurement teams and started ordering the material early on with a risk. Of course, this comes with a risk because if disruption happens and we might want to shelve off the project or postpone the project completely, certainly there's going to be a risk. But we are giving this visibility to the suppliers early on and ordering the material early on. At the same time, we have started writing our specific contracts with these companies in a manner where this risk is covered and the suppliers, which are partners in the supply chain, also do not take a complete hit if we have to shelve the project completely. So those are the things that we are doing. One of the other things I would also mention right now is we have started looking at all the trends of the various materials that go into manufacturing, and we are doing it on a quarterly basis. Of course, there are tools and softwares available. Ma'am can talk about it further, or some of the panelists who are building such products can talk about it further. But we have started looking at all such possibilities to build that database and also to make our decisions more data driven. So that is something that we are also doing. So I will take a pause here because that's a lot of stuff on manufacturing. But happy to have the questions later on from the panelists or professor or from the students. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Laddha. So you have raised certain important points and also linked your requirement with what Madam has said earlier with certain writers. So we talk about it. Now I request Mr. Atanu to give his opinion on the subject.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha. Good afternoon, all dignitaries and dais and dear students. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me on this annual event of IIFT Calcutta. And it's a real honor for me to be a part of this event in this premier institution. Coming back to the topic, today we are here to discuss about the transparency and visibility in supply chain management. So I will go straight to one of the recent time experience which we had in our organization to share with you the lack of visibility can create what kind of challenges in the entire supply chain process. Recently, 3-4 months back, we started a new business vertical in our organization by the name of Inland Waterways and Multimodal Logistics. So, to start a pilot venture, we got connected with the Inland Waterways Authority of India, which is the relevant department under the Ministry of Shipping to look after the inland waterways. When I say inland waterways, it is yeah, sorry. So what I was trying to share with you is so this Inland Waterways Authority. Inland Waterways Authority of India, they are the concerned authority under Ministry of Shipping, Ports and Waterways to develop and operate the 14,500 kilometers of river, combining river, canals and the creeks in India. So it's a huge natural resource which is so far, I can say it is not that way exploited and explored. Unlike some of the European countries, and if you have to give an example, in neighboring countries, I would definitely talk about Bangladesh. So their entire domestic movement and trade between India and Bangladesh is largely through the inland waterways. So what I was trying to mention is, so we took a trial project by loading roughly 2,000 ton of TMT bars for for our parent company from Haldia. In Haldia port, we have our own terminal, so we loaded a ship, small ship, we call it barge. So the kind of indication, you say, or assurance that was given to us, that transit time, Vibhor was talking about the lead time. So it was assured like maximum 14 days it will take to reach northeast Guwahati. Guwahati, there is a small port in a place called Pandu. So from Haldia to Pandu, it's about 1251 kilometers river road, which we have to pass through the Bangladesh waters as well in between. You have to cross Ganges, then there's Bangladesh waters, then you have to enter again in Assam in Brahmaputra. So initial 900 kilometers was very smooth. Nothing was happening, so we were anticipating, okay, we'll reach by 12 days max. But after that, we found there is hardly any dredging. Dredging, you have to maintain the channel for the navigability, entire channel. So that dredging was not at all happening. So our ship got stuck in between the river channel, and the Brahmaputra, the nature of Brahmaputra is different. The channel gets shifted. It's usually the river channel gets shifted. So you need to have a continuous dredging in place to ensure that the navigability is maintained. So eventually we arrived at Guwahati on the 27th day. And so you can imagine, that time we were fortunate that steel price was on the rise. So the seller was happy, okay, the steel price has actually risen and increased, so they could take that benefit of that. But imagine if it would have been a reverse case also. So that lead time, visibility is very important. During the pre-panel discussion session, we were talking about the pricing part of it, pricing fluctuation. So all these things you have to consider in mind, how we can ensure estimated lead time. In shipping, we call it ETA, ATB, ETC, ETC, ETCD, and all this. So it is all about international shipping I'm talking about. So it is all about timing, time saved, money saved. If you see the international shipping, it is far more stabilized nowadays. Everything is GPS enabled, AIS enabled. There are so many softwares are available in the market through which you can operate your ship comfortably. We have in Dubai, we have our own shipping outfit also. We have our own ships, Panamaxes. So we operate it smooth way, but that it is not a success story everywhere. That is what I mean to say. The inland waterways, we faced a lot of challenge. Of course, the government of India has taken very parting initiatives like PM Gati Shakti and the recently launched National Logistics Policy. So vision is there, but I personally feel that government of India alone cannot do anything. It has to be equal, positive participation from the industry, private industry. And with the sole objective that we need to bring in visibility, we need to bring in transparency in the entire supply chain management. And I'm sure the other panelists, one thing I'd like to mention that we started the business process re-engineering journey, I think 4 or 5 years back, before COVID. So during, I would not say that is 100% successful, but with that BPR initiatives, we could 50%, I can say, we could manage the entire supply chain management for our clients during the pandemic period. And what I feel the maturity level of the company, the mindset of the manpower, these are very important areas where based on which you should consider your technology adoption. Ma'am is there, and I think Shailesh, so they will be definitely share their knowledge on this part. But of course, without this significant involvement of the tech. Yeah, so without the very close engagement of technology, along with the policy framing by the government and the Chamber of Commerce, the Chambers of Commerce, we will not be able to bring in the desired visibility and transparency in the supply chain management. So this is, I can say, my first thought, and I look forward to hear from the others. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much bringing in some live example of how visibility can affect business and what needs to be done. I would now request Mr. Shailesh to give his viewpoint.
Thank you, sir. I think the feedback's probably, but again, awesome to be back to college after almost 18 years. So the feeling is really good. Thank you for having me. Thank you, sir, for having me on the panel. And it was a pleasure meeting everyone. Previous meeting in a separate meeting room where we could talk about a lot of different things. Coming to the topic, we're going to talk about supply chain visibility and transparency. And it's my personal belief because it's not a new concept. We've been talking about visibility probably even 100 years ago when we first started writing supply chain textbooks, right? Just that the mode and the model was different. You did with what you had at that point in time, and certain traditions, if I were to say, your academic traditions that we had learned, which, to be honest, worked very well until now, making sure that the industry can handle whatever little disruptions were happening, right? It was the pandemic and the post effect of it that people suddenly started talking about because disruptions were pretty much evident. A lot of this goes to the availability of information. This is not the first disruption happening globally. If you were to look back in history, disruptions like this have been happening, of course, not at a global scale, but big countries like the US have had multiple disruptions in the past. Just that we didn't know about it. Now, with the advent of technology and information dissemination, people get to know about it, people start talking about it. And the same tool has made it more viable to talk about supply chain visibility in a practical manner. Earlier, if you were to talk about, so probably about a decade ago, visibility, people used to talk about lead times in weeks. Until a few years ago, people started talking about lead time in days, and now people, if you're looking at the new business models emerging, people are talking about lead time in minutes, right? So that's the only thing which has changed is that the technology has made it possible for you to be able to predict and react to lead times which are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And just because you have visibility and we have cloud computing and we have the new fancy new software, does that mean your supply chain has stopped having problems? No. All the problems that other panel members have been talking about are still there, and the software is giving you visibility. The question which we have to ask when we are talking about either making a software or adopting a software or even the business process behind the software is what do I do with that visibility? So you know your truck is stuck in a traffic jam 200 miles out of, say, whatever, Canada. What do you do with that information? And that, I believe, is the crux or the philosophy or rather the end game of giving you supply chain visibility. What do I do when I have visibility? What is the decision that I can take if I know this event is either going to happen or this event has actually happened?
And that I think becomes a key part. We were talking about different metrics right now about ETA, STD, so on and so forth, TATs, which is turnaround time. The question is, can I convert it into a metric which directly defines our business? Can I convert my TAT into, say, availability to sell or availability to promise if I'm a B2B? If I know my truck's going to get delayed, does that impact my ATS? Does that impact my ATP? And I think that's more important. If I have a ship on the ocean and it's delayed by 4 hours, probably not. But if I have a a truck on my last mile and it's getting stuck for 4 hours, does my ATS matter? Absolutely yes, right? So when we start talking about visibility, we have to make sure we keep the context of its impact and the decisions that you can take that matters in defining the scope of visibility. The same goes with transparency. When you're going to talk about transparency, it's good to know where you're sourcing your product. It's good to know where your product is going to end eventually. The question is, what is the decision as a business owner that you can take if you have that information? And otherwise, if that information doesn't match. The third thing which you have to consider, and at the end of the day, we guys have to remember one thing, is that at the end of the day, every company is out there to make money, right? That's the objective of every organization, is to make money, right? So the third objective is that whatever solution that you have to come up as an organization, and it doesn't have to be just software. The question is it commercially viable? If it is not, it ends up becoming what we call an academic paper. A great idea in a textbook, but not be implemented, at least to the current technology. So keeping these three things in mind is how I would say I personally try to build my products in the field of supply chain, not just in this field, everywhere around. These are the three concepts which I keep when I'm trying to build my products. To know what you can do with that information, making sure that information is, you can react, response to that information, and the third is it's commercially viable for someone to know. Those are my brief thoughts on the topic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's another perspective, that how to react when we are fed with the information. So we'll come to that as well. So may I request Mr. Sampath to give his viewpoints.
Good afternoon to all of you. I feel very young today, so I'm thankful to Professor and the Institute to provide me an opportunity to interact with you guys. See, basically, I would like to share with you my industry experience as well as some of the concepts under which the supply chain has become more relevant as of today. So there are three cornerstones, so where supply chain, within which I perceive supply chain has become more relevant. So nowadays there are a lot of talks about sustainability. There are a lot of talks about circularity. That being on the one side, that is on the one cornerstone. And the second thing is basically how do we enable the business? Customer is the goal for any business to sustain. So how are we making the customer more comfortable? So we see that in our day-to-day. Life. So take for instance, we have Swiggy, we have Dunzo, we have Ola, we have Uber. So what do these people basically do? They do nothing but providing transparency. What do they do? You go to an app, so you click, you want a car, you want a cab, and things like that. Every second you know what is happening. The customer feels comfortable, customer feels that he's in safe hands. So this is the assurance that the service provider gives you whenever it is there. So that is in a minuscule level and a personal level. So you just extrapolate it to business. So at the business level, the customer, at the high-end customer, I come from a fashion industry, which is a fast fashion. We call it fast fashion. I come from a men's formals. Being at Raymond, we do men's formals. We are vertically integrated. So typically, a cycle time of fashion concept to stores. So concept is design to stores. One way of looking at this is design to store. The other way to look at is order to execution. Other thing to look at is from execution to cash. There are various concepts that you do. So how do you basically provide transparency in terms of all these things? So one is basically that your technology has to be so strong, so that it gives you the last mile visibility to the end customer. Unless the customer is given the required information which aids in his growth in business, we are here to make the customer comfortable. So supply chain is a very vast subject. It's not just the logistics, it's not just the production, it's not just the planning. It is from concept to execution, entire gamut of activities, whatever happens from concept to execution is classified as supply chain. So in each specific areas of supply chain, so how technology brings in visibility, I think it has gone up the days where we can do business just by mails, phone calls and things like that. The customer is so demanding, he wants real-time information. How we are able to give real-time information. So as I said, I'll give you two specific instances which can bring in the concept to this thing. So we are talking about what is it called supply chain management. Has anybody heard of demand chain management? What's a demand chain management? So demand chain management, supply chain management is once you give an order, so from there to execution, you execute the turnaround time is the supply chain management, whatever. Demand chain management goes one step backward. So how do you predict the demand? So we are currently, Raymond currently is servicing a demand chain management concept whereby at the retail level, there is a certain element of product movement. So by machine learning, by AI, it sees the product movements, and we as a vendor, the supplier, the customer does not want to get into any of these activities of predicting demand and things like that. The machine learning automatically gives you what is the demand, seasonal product, what is the kind of content of the fabric also which is in vogue at a particular season and things like that. With various metric, it gives you the kind of product that has to be replenished at what point in time you have to do that. So this is one of the aspects that the technology can bring in, whereby we are able to predict what is the demand, we are able to replenish, and we as manufacturers in brick and mortar has to scale up our knowledge base. We have to scale up our infrastructure in order that we take over from the customer some of the activities which he would not like to do. So that is one thing is at the highest end of, the customer is wanting to have certain things focused on in terms of his business, in terms of his demand generation and things like that. But execution is not his. Execution is purely down the line supply chain, value chain, we have to migrate. So that's how we develop our business and sustain our business with our customer. That is one. So second, and probably this is when we're talking about going to a local tailor here and getting a suit manufactured. So how do we get a suit manufactured? Typically, it would be about some 14 to 15 days. 15 days pieces that you give. On the 10th day, you come back, you see a trial, and then if it's not okay again, you readjust it, and then on the 15th day, you get a delivery done. So this is typically what we do in a conventional manner. So world is more towards that actually you have a mass customization. You go to a plant where you have to stitch individual suit to match the individual body. A guy is tall, not having paunch, a guy is short, having paunch. So imagine a situation where you have to cater to the international market with this kind of variance in the manufacturing process where you cannot have a mass production. So how does this come into play? Technology plays a more important part. So how it does that basically? So you go to a shop, typically you have A company like JCPenney or a Gap or Express in the US has typically about 1,600, 1,800, 2,000 retail shops. Who are the customers? These customers walking into the shop are the customers. So everybody wants a customized garment being done for him. So he goes there typically, he gives a measurement. So while he gives this measurement, these measurements are converted on a decimal mode directly at 12 o'clock midnight. Directly it comes to the plant where from Bangalore it comes. Believe me, the retail chains in the US and the Europe are waking up to this kind of customization. Getting the same thing done in the US is going to be very cost prohibitive. They cannot do it. It's almost, see, it's basically garment manufacturing is the name of capacities. How big you build up capacities based on that, your cost decreases. So it's an economy of scale. So customer wants to capitalize on the economies of scale. So you do a mass customization. So that is on the one side. So third, when I'm speaking about sustainability, so on that, what happens is that as far as sustainability is concerned, so the customer would like to know whether this product is eco-friendly. Consciousness is coming. People are getting into consciousness. People want to get into things which are not. They don't want to buy things which are not sustainable, which are not eco-friendly. So now here, sourcing these eco-friendly products, technology can play a part on that. Third, there are a lot of things where in our industry, actually the customer in the US is having a lot of conscience, not by choice, by regulation. In the US and advanced countries, they are very, very conscious about the social consciousness, because many of these, they have become so materialistic that actually the underdeveloped and developing countries are creating sweatshops across. So the Western countries have been very conscious of all these things, and then they, by regulation, they have a very strict enforcement on how equitable the wages are distributed in their vendor base, number one. Number two, are they following sustainable practices? Number three, is it an embargo country where there is, you have seen, many of you people would have heard about Zhenjiang in China, where Uyghur human rights and things like that was there. So it was a sweatshop. So most of them come to a conclusion that we will have to be conscious from where we are going to source our products. That becomes very important for all of us. So how do we do that? Technology again. So unless otherwise that you create a strong information system which has to be transparently shared with your customer. So customer is no more unwilling to source from you unless otherwise that you are utmost transparent with him on these things. And believe me, in these countries, see, in garmenting industry, most of the competition for India is from countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, China. China, of course, is losing its medal right now, basically because of the international opposition, plus also that their cost of manufacturing is increasing. So, to that extent, our competition is from these countries who are bracketed as developing countries, or some, or Ethiopia for that instance. Ethiopia is as categorized as a least developed country. So what these countries in the US, Europe try to do is that try to take advantage of the low cost of labor in order that these things happen. So any economy for that matter, it goes from brick and mortar, it scales up to a higher end of the value chain like the US. So the compliance becomes a very important part here. So in terms of compliance, how does one establish that actually we are compliant, the manufacturer is compliant, becomes very important. That's another perspective that I would like to draw. Third cornerstone is whether we are able to create an audit trail. So any US company has an agency in India who does a social audit for manufacturers in India. Any manufacturer. whether you are able to give proper wages to the people, whether you are creating a safety standards which does not impact a operator. All this becomes very important as far as you are conducting your business the way people, customers would like us to do business with. So with this, I would like to leave it to you to think about what role technology can play in getting this supply chain established. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Few additional points included as cornerstones to supply chain management, and here and new perspective that we have tried to bring in by introducing the concept of demand chain management, because these are the two sides of the coin, and that's how the effectiveness is grown. Now, one thing that we have seen in this discussion is that everyone talks about the way to be visible in the supply chain, and as initially Madam said about the digital transformation, and followed by that, we had Mr. Shailesh talking about how to react to the information. I understand that there is a concept of digital twin, in which you get the information and then simulate to see what could be the consequence of what has happened so far. Are you working on these lines in your digital transformation solutions?
Is this on? Okay. Yeah, so I believe these days technology everywhere is talking about machine learning and AI, right? Any technology which is forward looking cannot be without these two. Definitely, when we are talking about big data, has been in the industry since quite some years now. So understanding those patterns, now building an AI layer on top of that is definitely getting much more niche. And some of the companies are definitely focusing around this, including ours. The idea is basically to collate the data, right? What is AI? It is an intelligence developed over the available data. So it is very important to firstly capture the data, right? And that's why when I was introducing the concept of where we are headed, there are three aspects in any transformation when we want to move ahead towards a positive direction, towards a change. And it includes data, people, and the process. So whenever there is the majority of the challenge that we have seen with our clients for whom we do these digital transformations is that their data is quite fragmented. Something is lying, in same data is probably lying into different pockets. And now who will invest time to kind of collate that particular data, right? So the first step is basically the transformation becomes multiple year journey, trying to focus on how to collate this data. Our concept is that when I say our, it's like my company's, the product that we have, the software product that we have. The concept is that let's make that data as the base. Yeah, so that we do not have to replicate the data multiple times. So whenever a client or company comes to us taking our solution, we propose let's keep the data once. You do not have to replicate the data multiple times. Now there are on top of that there are multiple applications in sourcing, contracts, P2P, purchase orders, invoicing, supply chain, indirect, direct, everything. All of that kind of consumes this data from that same pool, right? And on top of that, then it is easier to develop the artificial intelligence, right? Because there is one single data. We have also seen in the market that many of the companies do not even know their entire spend. Their spend is also fragmented, like direct is spend is separate and indirect spend is separate. So in that case, there is a lot of ambiguity in terms of what is that tail spend. Nobody wants to focus on that tail spend, but if the organizations look at that, the tail spend actually becomes quite a lot in amount, quite significant in amount to be ignored, right? So when everything is combined under that one data lake, the tail spend also can be reduced. So all in all, the savings and the benefit of moving towards a digital transformation is definitely helpful. Now, this is slightly different from the ERP concept. And that is where, for now, of course, the ERP covers a large part of the world technology. So all those applications like us and others in the market are definitely integrated with the ERP somewhere. But going forward, there is an ambition that we may not want to be integrated with the ERPs because in that case, it increases flexibility. Did I answer the question?
So I'll go back to Mr. Shailesh, that what kind of requirement do you come across from the clients that you have with regard to the recent events that has happened?
Okay, so a couple of things that we've seen, and again, it has changed from reactive to responsive, depending how close we were to pandemic. When the pandemic hit, most of the requirements we were getting were simply reactive requirements, saying that just tell me where my stuff is, right? Don't tell me when I don't today even know where my stuff is. But eventually, as time passed, people started, got the breather or got used to the situation, if I were to say. And now the requests that we see today are much more responsive. People are started seeing, and I think borrow the term of demand chain management from Mr. Sampath. People have started moving there. It has always been there, like I said, but either it was statistical or Excel driven. Now what has happened is that people are going beyond, and again, Vibhor was talking about going beyond. He was talking upstream, I'm going to talk downstream here. We have customers coming and asking us not just about the digital twin, but they want us to start creating what's called customer personas. They want digital personas of their customers, which captures the behavior of their customer. So rather than just doing a demand forecast of a category at a high level, people want to do demand forecast for a particular person. I don't want to know whether, to take an example, this formal shirt would sell in Kolkata. People want to know the answer to whether this particular, or rather they ask us the question, tell me what kind of a shirt would sell in this particular store for this, if the store is close to, say, a university or college, what kind of a product should I be shelving on that particular store so that I can sell? And that is the starting point of your digital journey. Once you get that, then you start deciding if I have to make this shirt, when do I need to order, what should be my top line, bottom line, etc., etc. Going back to who am I going to source it to, how am I going to source it to, and so on and so forth. So this goes all the way back into building your supply chain. But today, I think a fundamental shift, which I see has happened a lot, is that people have stopped looking at, of course, you need the data, you need your sales data, your order data, and so on. But people have stopped looking at data just as product location and time. If you look at your marketing or your sales principles, people talk about the right product at the right place at the right time. What we've added or people have started asking is, I'm giving you the persona or the people, tell me what should be the product, what should be the price. So that's what significantly changed when we specifically talk about demand chain and a shift at the starting point of your visibility. The aim is to get this as right as we can, and build on this, the entire supply chain responds or reacts. Now, just because I've got my demand doesn't mean that, and it might just be a very good forecast, doesn't mean that it's the end game, it's the end goal. You have to make sure that the visibility across the supply chain as you're moving downstream to upstream is maintained. You've got your demand, you need to make sure that the purchase orders have been created at the right time. You have to make sure that the orders have been executed. Most of the factories that Mr. Sampath would tell are actually giving, in garment manufacturing, are giving a daily visibility on their lines to their customers as to how much is available, how much is committed, how much is made, how much of percentage of the PO has been consumed and how much is left, so on and so forth. And the visibility goes all the way up. And that probably is what's changed significantly in the past few years.
So what I intended to also understand that you stressed on how to react to the visibility.
Oh, yes.
So can you throw some light to us on this?
So the question really is, and I kind of see it as a very, the answer to this question is not easy, but to oversimplify this question is, I'll take the same example. If you know your, what information is important, needed for you to respond or react. So like, for example, if I were to leave from point A to point B, from my house to my friend's house, and I had a choice of two lanes, right? I could either take this road or I could either take this road. And at the beginning of the lane, and these were my only two choices, I'm oversimplifying it. At the beginning of it, I, let's say, open a map application that tells me that this looks like the best route for me to take, and I take that route. However, as I move in that particular route, and I'm stuck for whatever reason, traffic jam, an accident, and I'm now stuck. The question becomes, and my friend is, you all are aware of live location sharing, right? Your friend's looking at WhatsApp, whatever, how you share, to see where they are. The question is, can your friend help you get out of the jam, or you change the scenario anyway? If the answer is no, then I would call that information useless. Knowing that information is that it's good, I know you are stuck, but I can't respond to it. And a lot of people until now are treating it as this situation that, I know my stuff is stuck and my reaction or my response can't matter. What change, what people, rather I would say how you have to start thinking is that stop thinking of just that point which was goal, the end point from A to B. Change it in the sense that what were your other upstream or downstream operations which were held by this point? Can I change my location? Do I have a friend instead of going to the point B? Can I make a diversion to a point C? And I'll give you an example as to what I'm talking about, where I can go and deliver or make or whatever, change of location. Example of this is cold chain. Let's say you were going from point A to point B, you had fresh grocery which have a shelf life say of 2 days. And for whatever reason, you can't make it to that location. You know that if you continue on the journey and if you reach there 1 day late, everything is going to go waste. It's expired. So can you make a decision halfway in your route? Can you make a decision that I'll take a detour and I'll drop my stuff at some other store, some other location, so that I don't have to throw that? That's a decision that you can take based on visibility. Again, people can say that, yes, I didn't have the demand at the point C. Even if I were to divert and I have to drop my stuff at point C, that point C will now be overstocked and point B still will not have what it needed. Yes, that's a very good scenario. But the question is that you would have anyway wasted the entire source or the entire produce which was going from point A to point B. That would have anyway been wasted. If you can divert and drop it at point C, and use whatever you could or sell it at a discount to get it off your shelf, you still would be saving a little bit on your top line and bottom line. That is one particular example. The other examples, this is one example. One customer, which they do is basis, and it's in the tire industry. The tire comes from overseas and they are distributed throughout the US. What these people do is they look at what stock is arriving at what port. And at the time of arrival, then they make a decision of where the highest shortage is. And then there's a process called cross-dock, where the truck comes, the containers drop, and then goods move into different warehouses after some value-added services. So they don't make, initially what used to happen, you used to have you already used to commit that warehouse A, B, and C will get these particular products. Now what they do is they wait until the last minute, just before the cross-docking. They look at the demand picture of each of this warehouse to what they call it a hot, cold, hot, hot, warm, cold, what's selling, what's not selling, etc., etc. And accordingly, during the process of cross-dock, they will decide what needs to go at which warehouse, rather than the traditional way where the order was committed all the way to the warehouse. So that is one point which I wanted to bring, where visibility helps you make a concept which we talk about postponement. It lets you postpone your decision to the last minute, where you can make a more agile decision.
Yeah.
Professor, if you allow, may I add something? Actually, I like this, point that Shailesh had mentioned. The point about how to react to the information. I think it's very, very important in our area of work. For example, I talked about the capital allocation. So, we allocate the capital to, maybe to a certain project. Now, if we get this visibility early on, where we know that the equipment supplier is going to default, or some of the material supplier or the contractor is going to default, can we reprioritize our portfolio? Can we reallocate the capital in between, during that journey, so as to make sure that our overall execution for the year remains the same, but at the same time reacting to this, significant real-time information, making sure that we are putting the money at the right place. So that is one of the examples of how to react to the information.
Okay. So now the concept that not that all information are important always needs to be put in mind. So is there any framework to do that? For example, we have learned about information gain or information entropy or something like that.
So I'll actually rephrase. I think I misspoke. I think all information is important.
Okay.
There's nothing like bad, wrong information is wrong. But but all information is important. There's a quote which I will borrow, which says, "Data is the new oil." Collect as much as you can in today's world. What I meant to say is that not all information is actionable all the time, right? Knowing all the things, and one of the traps which we've seen our customers fall a lot of time is a kind of a control mania, that I want to know each and everything happening on my digital twin. The thing which we try to educate and train our customers is that don't worry about things which essentially are not in your influence and control. Focus only on things which are in your control. But to your point, information entropy is real, of course. I'll take an example of fashion. Traditionally, if I were to talk to any Indian retailer outside the fashion, people would say that I want my historical forecast done for the last 5 years, because honestly, that's how your typical tea, coffee, biscuits, chips have been selling, and it makes sense. But if you start talking about example of fashion industry, your shelf life in fast fashion, your shelf life of the product is 8 weeks. The entire portfolio is obsolete in 8 weeks, and colors within seasons don't change. Last time summer was red, this time summer is blue, right? So does my history even matter at that point in time? And this is where the new technology comes in. To your point, we stop looking at item as a whole. We start looking at item in their components. That if I can't forecast on a particular item, can I forecast on the component of items which tend to receive and are visible and are, then we get into the machine learning AI part, we talk about the tolerance and so on and so forth. Is it making an impact on the customer? So information entropy is there, and there are a lot of algorithms out there. We use neural networks, but that's not just the only way to do it. You could go as simple as multilinear regression if you want to. But essentially is in multilinear regression, you have multiple attributes and you're forecasting on each one. Neural network will just do it at a much bigger scale. But that's the point. You have to understand what is the tolerance. And if the tolerance is below a particular point in time, you know that the data is obsolete and you draw that.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to pass on to my students here, that now the importance of the information can be gauged to solve a problem. Now I was thinking about what Mr. Laddha said about supplier. Know about visibility about supplier. So where is the boundary that you want to draw?
As Shailesh was saying, all information is important, but maybe all information might not be useful at every single time. So for us, it's important to, in terms of equipment suppliers, I think we would draw the boundary at this point in time to the supplier of, let's say, the steel or the metal, which go into manufacturing the equipment itself. Similarly, in case of the contractors, the contractor workers who would build the factories, if I take the percentages, about 70% of construction is really cement and metal, in one way or the other. So what we would want is basically we would want to know where the specific contracting company or an engineering company or a construction company is sourcing that cement. And if we know that, if we have that visibility, is it going to be a continuous supply of material to this vendor? We are okay, we are covered. But if we don't have that visibility, then we want to make sure that, let's say, this contracting company or construction company defaults for a reason, we have a plan B in place. So that using our own deep pockets, we basically supply this material or do some sort of, keeping the stocks in advance as a safety stock to utilize in some of these projects where the companies would default. That's where we would draw the boundary at this point.
Okay, so you mean to say that you are looking into the items which are vital, which are scarcely available, and which has got long lead time that includes transit time as well.
Yeah, that is probably the precise way to put it. And it's also sometimes dynamic because some of these materials are, become readily available. So we would not want to, go into too much details into when these are readily available. But when the dynamics change, the environment change, there are particular scenarios. For example, today we have energy crisis, we have, commodity prices fluctuating a lot. Those are the scenarios where we would definitely like to have this sort of a visit.
So is it also true for fashion industry in your case? Yeah, that's what I was also thinking.
Taking further from what he was saying, so there are two things here. So to your specific question, where do you draw a line in getting visibility on the source? So I would draw some lessons from project management, and I would draw some lessons from my materials management as well. Any project management, you have a critical path. So the critical part, what is the critical part? So for executing a project, you would have so many activities which can culminate in the successful completion of a project. But out of, let us say, 100 activities or 150 activities, you draw a theory of 80 by 20. So there could be that 20% of the activities which has the longest gestation period or longest lead time. It could be the production time, it could be the logistics or whatever it is. So our prime focus, as he was saying, could be probably that you concentrate on the critical parts first, so that the project does not get jeopardized, number one. Number two, in any stores management or materials management, you have various concepts, ABC, critical, non-critical. In spares management, you have non-critical, critical, and critical. And third is you have availability and things like that. It is not just that one mantra that we have. We have to have all these concepts built into it. First, critical part. Second thing, do you have alternate where you can see that just in case that it fails? So do you have a critical, do you have alternate suppliers? Third, are you sufficiently stocked for project management? So it also touches upon your cash flow. So how are you going to do that? You do the ABC analysis. And in consumption values and things like that, you take that. So where it is not going to hurt your project in terms of cost and financially, it is not going to affect you more. So you have the liberty to stock more so that you take care of your stock out situations, you take care of it. Number two is that you have alternate sources. That's the next level of liberty that you are allowed to take. So in a graded manner, if we are able to have these decision-making tools available to you by basically the data management, the strong data that you build, unless you have a strong data built in, as Madam was saying. So you cannot analyze what is critical, what is alternate available, what is more critical, where it is going to, reorder level it is going to impact. And also AI comes into play where you have multiple scenarios come into play which can jeopardize your entire project itself. So these are the specific areas which we have to look out for and see how technology can aid you in making it. It's all a matter of how you take a decision, how considered opinion you are taking. So what aids you in considered opinion is drawing these materials management concepts, project management concepts to your entire team and build your technology around how you enable these things. So that's basically the probably one of the solutions to what we are discussing today.
So what
If
would
I
be,
can just,
yeah,
if I can just add to that, so we were also discussing backstage, right? So supply chain is actually not just buyer and supplier, right? It is buyers, buyers, suppliers, suppliers. So a lot of parties that are involved, and the problem statement is basically that will affect as well. So how to reduce that? And the answer definitely lies in the visibility, right? If I know at the last end of the supply chain that there is something that is changing in the front side, that I'll take corrective actions, right? So though there may not be something that we can go ahead to Shailesh's point, right? There may not be something that we can change about a stuck truck, but I can monitor, take corrective measures on my side as a last end supplier side to make sure that the impact is lowered. Right. So from that perspective, there is a concept going on in the technology world that let's give a that visibility layer across all the parties of the supply chain, so that it's kind of supplier collaboration, right? Everybody is able to view the supply chain in that particular layer. So we are all looking up to that. The major challenge in that particular front as well is the concept is there, the solution also from technology perspective can be there. But when we want to deploy that, right, who is that one party amongst those many companies who will say that, okay, I will hold the ground and design this perfectly, or I will run the operations perfectly, right? So one single ownership of that, owning that entire technology into its supply chain. So that part is kind of still yet to be resolved. I would say we have not seen too many success stories around that, but the concept is still there. How to resolve it when so many parties need to be aware about that.
To bring out more, I will give you a live example so that this issue is best discussed. I'm talking about the second model that we said, that customized tailoring, that what we're talking about, mass customized tailoring, what we talking about. Let us say we have 3,000 to 4,000 point of sale in the US and Europe who want customized garments. Now, typically you try to simulate a condition. I walk into a shop. So I want a garment of a particular style, of a particular fabric, of a particular shade and style. Now I go that as a retailer, I'm obliged to provide him what he wants. So we're talking about worldwide retail scenario. So I go to the shop, I choose a particular garment of a style, garment fabric content and a style with the liberty given to me by the shop to choose my prints, embellishments. I will customize my embellishments. To that extent, it has gone. So while that is there, so yes, shop says that yes, you can go. So he pays 100% advance and he goes. So I commit within 10 days, I'm going to deliver to him from India to the US. So the order comes to me, I have a stock of. I don't have that material. I don't have that embellishment. Even that button is not there, so of a particular size. So look at the kind of image damage that happens to a brand. I'm not talking about a shop, I'm talking about a brand. This is how the brands are built. So how the brands are built is, are we able to satisfy the customer's need blemishless? So to that extent, what happens? What is the requirement here so that I have a zero tolerance for any failure? Number one, visibility. What is the visibility we are talking about? We are talking about the inventory at my plant in India at any point in time. I'm talking about 24/7. So am I able to give him real-time visibility on the stocks of a particular embellishment, of a particular button, of a particular thread type and color and size, color and shade, whether it is there. So if these are not available to shop, we cannot simply go ahead and execute these orders. And this is a major success. Everybody wants a customization done for him. So we have cases where actually a customer walks into a shop and says that next week is my wedding, I want this in 1 week's time. So we are executing those orders 1 week's time. Let us say that we find that that particular fabric itself is not available, he's taken an order. Look at the kind of damage it creates at the retail end for him and the agony he undergoes. So we are talking of these kind of things where, the data has to be built in. What is the importance of visibility given down the supply chain? Also as the down upstream as well as downstream, how the information sharing becomes very important, especially in the fashion industry.
So I'll ask Mr. Atanu to say about how you ensure dealing with coordination and collaboration with the partners like port, shipping line, customs, barge operators, equipment operators, stevedores. How do you go about it?
Yeah, so I will try to bring in a holistic angle on your question. Basically, I firmly believe the success of supply chain management and logistics as a whole depends on how best you can control the entire supply chain. That is from origin to destination. Now, if someone is running a steel plant, he has a lot of procurements of dry bulk cargoes like coal, limestone, and iron ore from various parts of the world. There are a lot of spare parts which need to come to the plant at the right time, and there are outbound movement as per the market demand. That could be on the domestic pan-India as well as exports. This entire supply chain cannot be possible for one company to manage and monitor as smooth as to be desired. So a reliable logistics partner who can bring in the kind of cohesive technology-based solution. Of course, there will be a requirement of technology partner as well here. So that will definitely help, and controlling the supply chain also depends largely on the assetization of your own. Like for example, we manage 30 plus trains, private trains, which are given to our parent company. And those trains are ensuring that the coal and limestone from the ports are coming at the right time. Those are ensuring that the iron ore is coming from the mines at the right time. And those are ensuring that the steel products, the finished products are reaching out to the customers at the right time. So this is how the manufacturers wish to control the market. You need to control the entire supply chain. So that is this is the view, and as I have said, customized bespoke software is the key to success, backed by the factually the data and adequate predictive analysis for the future market condition.
Yeah, so And that's the point that you try to take control of the supply chain. You said about 30 trains, is it including engines or the wagons only?
No, these are 30 trains, these are just wagons.
And how about the supply of engines?
Yeah, so you are correct. So for the supply of engine and the crew, driver and all, we need to depend on the Indian Railways. So it is not the entire control of the entire supply chain, but largely, because I need not to depend on that way on the Indian Railways, because they have huge commitment for the nation. So if I have to cater to my customer, this is my solution. I have my own trains, so I'll run my own.
So what is the lag of getting drivers and crew? If you ask for 5, how much you get like that?
Yes, there are lags, and that depends on that is as you know, it's seasonal also. Like right now, there's a power crisis, so all are going to the power plants. All wagons are. So this kind of situation is there. So so there lies the advocacy part also. The supply chain partner along with the manufacturer should go for advocacy at the government level, so that the additional requirements, like as you said, engine and the crew manning part, that can also be controlled by the supply chain team.
That is
So that will really help. So these are under discussion now. Let's see what happens. And this brings visibility as well, because these trains or whatever you say, ships, barges, everything is GPS enabled nowadays. So you can have the real-time data about your the position of your merchandise. That is also there, which is not available at this moment in the Indian Railways side.
Yeah. So thank you for the views. So to coming to the end of the discussion, I would request every member wants to give at least a few statement or one statement at least as a resolution that we can resolve. We are taking as a deliverable from this panel discussion. I start from you, madam.
Well, I think we could not conclude what Mr. Sampath had raised, but that's a good problem to have, right? And that is something I'll be keen to discuss in further detail and kind of. I'm sure technology can solve a lot of things, if not everything, but there is always a handshake of technology with the business. So that is one interesting topic.
Thank you, ma'am. I came here with the problems. I told in the beginning also that we are dealing with these supply chain issues in our capital plan. Now, with this panel discussion and after talks with panelists, I have more, let's say, information about what products are available in the market. Especially Mr. Shailesh and ma'am, they are working towards providing us more visibility to supply chain. So one of the things that I would be going back with is how can we start looking at some of these tools that are either being developed or are already in the market to provide us such visibility. We are doing it to a certain extent, but maybe there's more to explore. My question to, not a question, but actually my comment to Mr. Shailesh and ma'am would be, how cost effective these solutions are. Because sometimes these products that are being developed are not economically viable. These are very costly affairs sometimes to implement and maintain. So can we come up with something which is actually becomes more economically viable and can be used by not just big, large organizations, but also small organizations in the country or in the region. I'm talking about Asia Pacific right now. So in the region, that would be interesting to see going forward. One last thing I would also say, and this is for the students here, we've been talking about all these disruptions and deviations and issues. One thing it it is also interesting is there are not just issues right now. There are exciting opportunities that we are seeing, particularly in India and particularly in Asia. I was talking about the sourcing all the time, and some of these things come across continents from different regions. But what we are looking, what we've already started looking is maybe global expertise with local supply. And there's a gap. There's a big gap that when the skilled materials, highly specific materials are required, there's nobody who is manufacturing this. So can we, as students, the future of this country, the future of maybe Asia, can we put together something as plans going forward with that global supply? That itself is going to solve a lot of issues. I mean, all this visibility that we are talking about, if something can be sourced locally, the visibility improves by itself to a great extent. So, that is one message that I would definitely like to give to the future leaders of this country to think upon, to ponder upon. At least it's going to solve a lot of my day-to-day problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So, logistics and supply chain management. We need to bring visibility and transparency. So I would like to quote the vision of National Logistics Policy, just for ready reference, that is written to develop a technologically enabled, integrated, cost-efficient, resilient, sustainable, and trusted logistics ecosystem in the country for accelerated and inclusive growth. So this vision, I think, largely we have captured in today's discussion. Now, if the vision is that from the government level, as I earlier also mentioned, government alone cannot do anything. So we as industry, we have to come forward, maybe some task force on specific challenges. I was referring about the inland waterways challenge. I was talking about the railway part of logistics. So some specific challenges commodity-wise, it could be for the heavy industries, it could be for FMCG, for fashion industries. Let us take some specific projects, bring some task force, and try and resolve the challenges one by one. Of course, technology has to be there with us, and the bespoke technology needs to be in place, and advocacy at the government level. These are some of the key points which I feel very significant and way forward to ensure perfect, visible, and transparent supply chain management in India.
Thank you. Thank you. So I have two components to it. My first answer would be to Vibhor's question, and he basically talked about the cost effectiveness of the solution. And I'd like all the future CROs and CFOs to take a note of it. Anytime potential customer asks you or tells you the MRP is too high, talk about value realization. It doesn't matter whether a product costs X or X plus delta. What really matters, and especially if you are at the end of buying a product, really matters is what is the value realization you will have if you were to use that process/product, right? If you were to pay me 1% of your top line, which is a huge number, but if I still increase your top line by say another 15%, I think it's a fair deal. Or you could work on a bottom line. So that's one of the objectives when you are evaluating a product, either as a sales pitch or as a buying proposition. Always look at the value realization aspect of it. The second thing which I wanted to basically summarize is that in today's world, with all the data that is getting available and thanks to technologies that are coming into the field where the data is being aggregated, cleansed, and massaged for you properly for consumption, keep in mind is the data action that you will take at the end of the process. Forget about systems, forget about technology for a minute. You are implementing a process. your end goal should always be the decision. It should not be, I can do this. It should always be, this is what I really want to do. Very subtle difference, but someone giving you a set menu versus something you would always have an objective at the end of your process. That's all I want to say.
Okay. I would like to extend what Shailesh was saying. So, Shailesh was saying, go with an end result in mind while you are framing it. So, I would like to extend it by saying, see an end result. What is the value proposition that you are able to give to a customer? Not looking at your own thing. So, probably I would like to improve my process. Improving my process, does it add value to my customer? That's the primary thing that we have to look for. So, in that perspective, coming to the cost, what I was talking about, there are two types of things. There is a vanilla product, there is a development. So, always in a development, there is an ambiguity in terms of man-hour spent because it goes into trials, it goes into quality, it goes into production and things like that. There companies are beating around in the process because you are talking about something which is you don't have start to end visibility on what you're doing. You know that you need to do something at the end of it. So the journey that you're going to do, how prolonged is it? How what kind of metrics come into play which can increase the man hours in that? So probably you would not know. So while you're trying to budget anything for that instance, you should have sufficient budgets, buffers in your costing for that particular project. Of course, most importantly, you can exceed the budget provided it gives more value to your bottom line at the end of successful project. So these are the two things that I want to part with by saying that those two things, if you are having in mind, I think you should be going good to go ahead.
So thank you. Now the floor is open. Any quick questions? Because everyone has to catch flight and leave early. So very quick questions.
Very good evening to the panel. I am Mishra from the batch of 24 and I'm the first. So my question is for the panel. Mr. Vibhor talked about how local manufacturing and visibility are important. And a local MSME today can use say ONDC and get its foot in the e-commerce space. The question is, how does a smaller logistics operator or a bigger company, the logistics department, get products affordably, preferably more affordable ones, through which you can identify the snags in the supply chain routes. Whether he wants to get his products from, say, using inland waterways or through highways, freeways, whatever. Does he know where these snags are and plan his routes accordingly? What products can he use preferably cheaper? While his customers are changing every other day, every other month, and he does not have the a priori knowledge as to where his products are.
Yeah.
So I think the problem is a multifold problem. We started by talking about a smaller customer or a smaller business owner, if I'm not wrong, right? So the objective as a smaller business owner hopefully shouldn't be operations optimization at that point in time because your business is not that. Most likely, as a small business owner, you would be focused on customer penetration. And you using what the example you were using 3PLs and 4PLs for improved customer penetration probably would be your objective. But yes, once you are pan-India and your business has scaled big enough that you can drop your capital in your own DCs or in your own fleets and still be profitable is where you start doing your operations optimization. But as a small business owner, I don't think so. The right advice would be, looking into the directions or trying to compete with the price of Amazon or something by trying to open your own warehouses. That's what, if I understood your question right.
So, some time back, we learned about some MSMEs who are not finding their target audience within this category, whereas people abroad who are wanting to buy their products. So, especially for these people, and then these people can grow their market, grow their country. So, in these cases, if they can have a very good product that will give them access to a very good logistic network, that would be desired.
Your question is basically hovering around logistics. Right. So, in order to optimize on your product, first and foremost is the ask of the customer. One, what is the ask of the customer? Within what time he wants to do? That determines your logistics. Two, second is your costing. You might have already decided what route to use while you're costing it. So, for instance, there are various modes of transport by sea, by air, by courier. You have already costed when you're giving it to them because nobody buys a product unless you give a costing. So, it would be prudent for you to do this exercise before you cost the product and make a quotation to customer. Then only you will be able to do that. But it would not be appropriate for you to take a decision after your product is ready for shipment. So that's not the right thing to do. Basically, because it may touch upon the customer's requirement, which you may compromise, or it would touch upon your cost. Does that answer your question?
Good evening, panel. I'm Mishra from the batch of 24. And my question is that each and every organization is trying to achieve their sustainability goals. Supply chain visibility, how does it help how does it help an organization achieve their sustainability or ESG goals?
You basically want to know how visibility improves your sustainability goals, right? Eco goals. So the first question, it comes down to the actionable information. But the certain actions that you can take, and just because the conversations happen on logistics, is you can plan your shipments better if you have better visibility to your demand. Rather than, there's a term which we call LTL, so less than truckload, basically running half loaded trucks which are running half, right? So instead of, if you know what your demand is, when there is, you can plan your shipment schedules in such a way that instead of running half trucks, you run full trucks, right? And therefore, you're burning the same fuel, but you're getting a better, your carbon footprint is slightly improving. The second is your return trips. If you have reverse logistics, the same trucks can be used. The same trucks can become multimodal, is one of the words that we were using, in case if you're running LTL. So on and so forth. And this is just in logistics. If you look at demand forecasting in groceries, fresh produce, the closer you are, the more accurate you are, the lesser wastage of fresh produce would have, right? And therefore, you would not lose customers and not also throw a lot of waste vegetables or expired vegetables out of your stores or warehouses because you didn't get the demand right. So these are just a few examples.
Yeah. I would like to add to your question, to him what he says. Half truckloads, half this thing, because you're talking about the logistics cost optimization. That's what you're talking about, number one. There are various things that you could do. Typically, always the requirement of your logistics needs does not perfectly match with the availability. The volume would be different from what the transporter offers. So one way of looking at it is something called a milk run. What's a milk run basically? You could have, the customer could have a visibility of nearby vendors, so he could consolidate all those things. So, or even your logistics provider can add something saying that actually, it all depends on when the customer needs it. Let us say there's a lot of difference between a customer wanting a product the next day to a customer wanting it the next 10 days. So your logistics provider can help you in consolidating the shipments to product. Number two, he can also, your logistics provider can also provide you solution in terms of knowing which are the other customers, other vendors or other shippers who have similar things. He can consolidate, he can come to one place, he can pick it up in the same truck, he can put others and things like that. So that your per unit cost of movement, if that's what you're targeting, your per unit cost of movement does not increase because you gain the advantages of consolidation. Consolidation is a big thing in the logistics market. So you can gain the advantage of consolidation. If that answers your question.
Yes, just that.
Yeah, well, one more thing, if you see the new of the R is green logistics. So we need to see that the pressure on our highways, how we can reduce it. So as you see the goods, industry groups like Tata Group and all, they are now talking about sustainability. They're in fact, one of the objectives in our company also to launch this inland waterways and coastal shipping department is to go towards the green logistics initiatives. So let's say we move your cargo from Kandla to Paradip. So instead of using the roadways, why can't you explore the options of coastal shipping? India has 7,500 kilometers of coastal route available, east coast and west coast. And it will give you transit time, let's say, for 7 days, 8 days. So why can't that be explored? Now, for that, every manufacturers and sellers don't have that kind of volume also to book a full ship, full load. So there comes the requirement of the containers, and containers are also like FCL and LCL, full container load, less than container load. So all these are pursuing concept. Mr. Sampath was mentioning about the milk van. So those can be definitely explored. Now your challenge could be your first mile and last mile. So how would you reach to the port? Then will be first mile, and then from after arriving at the unloading port, you need to go for a last mile journey. So this can be planned properly and customized for your customers. And with the proper data available, at the either at the government portal or within the chambers of commerce, you can definitely plan a customized solution towards the sustainable green logistics initiatives.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so let me sum up because we had a long discussion of almost 2 hours, and looks like it can go endless because of the real issue that the business is facing now. It appears that supply chain management has overtaken operations management or production management nowadays. So to sum up what we have discussed, first of all, let me thank the esteemed panelists for spending and giving us the time be here with us, sharing the experience. This panel has been very well thought and well construed by the student coordinators. We had manufacturers, we had logistics service provider, and we have software and technology service providers, and this is an optimum mix. That is what the supply chain management is all about. That problems of the manufacturers, traders, and suppliers should be resolved with technology given by the solution providers, and the logistics solution provided by companies like PMI, what they are doing, how they are doing, what are the challenges in our country, because the aim has been to ensure that logistics costs should not reduce the competitiveness of Indian products. So thanks to the panel once again, and I wish the students again, and let us give a big hand of Thank you.
I would like to thank all the panelists for their valuable time. First of all, I would like to request the club coordinators of Scope and Batch and present the mementos as a token of appreciation to all our esteemed guests. On behalf of the entire IIFT fraternity, I would like to thank all the panelists for keeping their views on the supply chain issues and visibility. We are grateful for the thoughts and experiences you have shared with us. I'm very sure the students had a lot of information and inspiration from you. Thanks again for this truly enriching experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir. And